So cow's milk provides about 8 grams of protein per cup, but so does soy milk. So there are actually a lot of plant foods that are good protein sources, and getting enough protein is not typically a problem for most plant-based eaters. It can be for people that are really picky eaters, for those that don't eat enough calories, for kids who live off of a lot of highly processed, refined carbohydrates, fried foods, sweet drinks. They may not get enough protein, but generally when people are eating a reasonably well-constructed diet, protein is taken care of. And in fact, there were a couple of trials that I think are quite interesting from Germany. These are probably the largest trials on toddlers and children, and they're called the Vecchi studies. And the toddler study was about 430 children who were 1 to 3 years of age, and protein intakes averaged about 2.7 grams per kilogram per day for omnivores, about 2.3 for lacto-vegetarians, and about 2.4 for vegans. And the RDA is actually 1.05 grams per kilogram per day for children, for toddlers. And so all three groups were actually consuming over double the RDA. And in the Vecchi youth study, this is like 6 to 18-year-olds, omnivores were at 1.36 grams per kilogram per day, lacto-ovo were 1.14, and vegans were 1.16. And again, teens, it's 0.85 for the RDA, and for children, it's 0.95, or about a gram per kilogram. And so again, they were all well in excess of the RDA. But for parents who are concerned, and we all grew up thinking that meat was the only real source of protein, that most of us, it's ingrained into our culture. And so people often, it's the primary concern when you start eating a plant-based diet: am I going to get enough protein? And for children who are growing, the concern is expanded, if you will. But there are a lot of things that parents can do to help ensure that children get enough protein. So to me, the most important is just to think about what the protein source is at each meal, and at some of the snacks as well. So for example, when you're eating breakfast, if you're having a bowl of ready-to-eat cereal with a little bit of almond milk and a few bananas sliced on top, you might get 4 or 5 grams of protein in that meal. But if instead you choose soy milk, and you include some hemp seeds, for example, some nuts and seeds on the cereal, have some berries on top, and maybe a slice of toast with nut butter, you'll be closer to 15 to 20 grams of protein. So it can make a big difference. If you're having a salad at a meal, if you add on some tofu or some beans, add seeds to your dressing, like hemp seeds and tahini, for example, you can boost the protein in that meal a lot. For children, you want to really be thinking about getting legumes in. And sometimes it doesn't have to just be a bowl of beans. It can be some tofu. It can be some edamame. It can be even legume-based pasta instead of grain-based pasta, or providing them a trail mix instead of pretzels for a snack. There's just so many ways you can do it. And I would say you want to be striving to include legumes or legume-based foods at most meals. And so it's beans, lentils, edamame, tofu, tempeh, other soy foods, even once in a while to include veggie meat. Peanuts and peanut butter count, soy milk count. So all of these things can make getting enough protein easier. And nuts and seeds and their butters are great to add, and especially hemp seeds and pumpkin seeds are particularly concentrated. So 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds is 10 grams of protein. And so let's say, you want to choose higher protein non-dairy milks if you can, so soy or pea milk. But if you don't, and your children don't like those or are allergic to them, one thing that you can do is to add about 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds per cup of milk and blend it. So you can take your, 2-quart container of milk, pour a couple of cups in the blender with, the appropriate amount of hemp seeds, to get about 2 tablespoons per cup, blend it, and then pour it back in the container. And you've just fortified the non-dairy milk. You've added about 6 or 7 grams of protein per cup. You've added essential fatty acids. You've added iron and zinc and all sorts of other nutrients. So that's also an option. And then the other thing you can do is think within each food group about the more protein-rich foods. So, for example, with grains, most grains provide about 4 to 6 grams of protein per cup. But amaranth and wheat and spelt and kamut and quinoa provide more. So quinoa is around 8. The other grains I mentioned are around 10 to 12 grams of protein per cup. And even within the veggie, sort of kingdom, things like peas and spinach and mushrooms are a little higher in protein than some of the other veggies. And then I think the other thing you can do, which kids quite usually like, is to add protein to smoothies. So if you're making a fruit or a green smoothie for your child, again, hemp seeds. If it's a green smoothie, add frozen peas. Add soft tofu. You can do that quite easily without adding any protein powders. You can fortify the smoothie to make it a fairly high protein option as well.